we want to have a broader look at the synthesis of evaluation findings. So evaluation findings so far have been, of course, reported on in evaluation reports. But then if you have a whole pile of evaluation reports, what do you do with them? Can you conclude something in addition to what's mentioned in the reports? And so far we've been approaching this through rather restrictive methods, which basically conclude that most of these findings are not related to each other and thus should be thrown out of the window. And the challenge is to really be more open about this and see whether somehow findings that appear to be unrelated do in fact have commonalities and can in fact be used for higher level synthesis. And there are some approaches that have been developed to do this, realist synthesis approach, for example, but CDI wants to explore further. So this is an important theme of the center, and it will become more important over time, I think. The key challenge is whether it would be possible to focus a synthesis on some emerging findings that would make sense and that would be sufficiently rigorous. The reason why synthesis has become such a restricted and narrow perspective is because of the fact that it is difficult to combine findings from different studies because of the differences that you find in these studies. So you have to overcome a huge challenge, which is that can you redefine findings that were made in different studies in such a way that they can become comparable to each other. A potential huge reward of doing it like this is that you would get an additional perspective on a field of work that does not emerge in any of these individual studies. But if you look at them together, it suddenly becomes possible to conclude something that wasn't really made that evident in any of these studies. Many of the larger evaluation units in the development community are actually reporting now on all of the project level evaluations that the organization has been doing in a specific year. And they come up with sometimes very interesting conclusions on the effectiveness and the processes and the efficiency of the organization that you would not read in these individual reports. Now, we're not talking about substantive findings at this stage. I mean, what they do is point towards learning in the organization rather than learning on what's happening in the ground, on the ground. But it is a first start, and what we can try to do is then also see whether this would be possible on the substantive side. Ideally, we would want to go into a specific area of impact evaluations, a series of impact evaluations that have been done, and would like to see whether we can draw higher level conclusions from this. And this means that first we'll need to develop the other themes of CDI a bit further to see where a synthesis would make most sense. So for this reason, it's not going to be an upfront theme, but it's going to be more looking at what happens in the other themes and then picking up a possible candidate for synthesis.